The Galactic Court loomed like a cathedral of steel and shadow, its ceiling lost to a haze of stars projected across the void. The human Adrian Hale was forced to kneel, shackled to the cold obsidian floor, as alien fleets hovered beyond the transparent dome. Judge XLR said, "Humanity's crimes echo across centuries, and today your kind faces its end." The Adrian Hale's chest tightened under the weight of billions watching from distant systems, their voice crushed before it could rise. Every atrocity of human history blazed in cruel holograms around them, painted as proof of extinction. The silence after the decree was more suffocating than the words themselves. Then a whisper curled through the shadows, soft and unseen, yet sharp enough to cut despair. Silent Ally said, "They're not just judging you, they're judging us all." The words lingered like fire in the dark, a promise that humanity was not as alone as the court intended. The chamber echoed with silence after the sentence, each heartbeat of the Adrian Hale pounding louder than the alien voices that had condemned him. Shackles dug into his wrists, but he refused to bow fully, raising his chin against the weight of judgment. Judge Exilar said, "You kneel before the will of the galaxy. Accept it." The words struck like a blade, but his spirit resisted, a spark of stubborn humanity refusing to be extinguished. In that refusal lay danger, because the galaxy did not fear humanity's crimes alone. It feared the resilience that survived them. And as the whisper from the silent ally replayed in his mind, the Adrian Hale understood. The trial was more than justice. It was a performance for billions who demanded fear, not truth. Holographic screens shifted again, replaying humanity's wars as though every tragedy had been stitched into one endless wound. Children crying in firestorms, soldiers screaming in trenches, oceans stained with oil and blood. The Adrian Hale's chest tightened as his own memories bled into the images, recalling faces he had lost. Betrayal echoed louder than the accusations, because even as he stood alone, humans sat among the tribunal, nodding to alien judgment. Collaborator Marcus said, "Humanity has proven itself unworthy." The words spoken by a fellow human cut deeper than alien condemnation. Yet within that pain, the Adrian Hale realized the court was weaving a false narrative, twisting truth into spectacle. Judge Xilar's voice carried no anger, only cold inevitability. "Extinction is mercy," he declared, as if wiping away a species was no more than cleaning debris from the stars. The Adrian Hale shuddered, not at the threat, but at the casualness of it. Chains groaned as he shifted, lifting his face toward the gallery above. Billions watched in silence, their alien forms a sea of judgment. He whispered within, "We are more than their fears." Yet doubt gnawed at him. The silent owl's gaze flickered from the shadows, her sorrowful eyes offering something unspoken. It was not hope but recognition, a sign that someone within the tribunal had seen this nightmare before. The proclamation of extermination echoed across the chamber. But the silence that followed was worse. The Adrian Hale felt as though his heart had stopped, only the rattle of chains proving he was still alive. He remembered voices of those he had lost, whispers of family and comrades gone, all buried beneath wars both just and unjust. Judge Xilar said, "The galaxy will not mourn you." Yet in that finality a strange clarity struck him. Mourning was not the measure of humanity. Survival was. The whisper of silent ally returned, a quiet defiance hiding in shadows. It was enough to ignite a fragile ember inside him, one that the tribunal had failed to extinguish. The cell was carved from obsidian stone, its walls radiating the chill of endless night. The Adrian Hale sat in silence, chains still locked around his wrists, but the greater weight pressed deeper inside. Memories surged unbidden, the laughter of a daughter lost, the warmth of a hand that had once held his, and the silence that followed betrayal. His scars burned not from battle alone, but from love torn away. He whispered to himself, "I should not have survived when they did not." Yet, survival was the curse and the gift that bound him now. The court may have condemned him, but his heart carried the ghosts of humanity, each voice demanding to be remembered, each loss refusing to fade. It was not strength that kept him alive, but the ache of memory that would not let him surrender. The tribunal had shown humanity's cruelty, but the Adrian Hale's mind returned to humanity's tenderness. He remembered his mother's voice reciting stories by candlelight, her face lined but kind. He remembered a soldier who gave his rations to a child, though starving himself. These were truths the court never projected, because compassion was harder to weaponize. His throat tightened as he whispered, "We are not only the fire, we are the hands that carry water." The galaxy saw blood, but not the quiet strength woven in sacrifice. In the cold silence of the cell, he clung to these fragile memories like lifelines, knowing they were what separated humanity from the caricature painted in the tribunal's lies. The clanging of footsteps echoed outside the cell, metallic and sharp. A familiar figure appeared at the bars. Marcus, the collaborator, dressed in crisp military attire with medals gleaming under sterile lights. His voice dripped with contempt disguised as reason. Marcus said, "You should stop resisting. Survival lies in obedience, not defiance." The words burned, not because of their cruelty, but because they came from a human. The Adrian Hale stared at him, broken chains rattling faintly, and replied, "You abandoned dignity for scraps." Marcus smirked, unbothered by the venom. Betrayal from one's own species weighed heavier than alien judgment, yet it also sharpened the Adrian Hale's resolve. If betrayal was survival for some, then defiance would be survival for the rest. Alone again, the Adrian Hale closed his eyes, and the cell dissolved into memories. He saw the battlefield where comrades had turned on him. Their eyes filled not with hatred, but with desperation. He recalled the moment trust shattered, when survival outweighed loyalty. His chest burned as though betrayal was carved into his skin. Yet within that wound he found clarity. Humanity's story was not one of perfection, but of endurance. He murmured, "We survive even when trust breaks, even when love dies." His voice cracked but did not fall silent. The court might strip him of dignity, but it could not erase what humanity carried in its scars, the strength to bear pain and still stand. The tribunal may have caged his body, but in silence he found the truth of why he endured. He remembered standing in a ruined village, carrying a wounded child through fire, even when his own strength was failing. He remembered burying comrades beneath broken soil, promising their memory would not be forgotten. Humanity's worth was not found in victory, but in persistence through ruin. He whispered, "I live because they could not, and I will speak because they are gone." The chamber might condemn, but his story was no longer just his own. It was a vessel for every voice silenced by war and betrayal. In that realization, the ember of defiance glowed brighter than before. The tribunal resumed, its chamber alive with new projections of humanity's sins, each atrocity magnified until the truth itself was buried under spectacle. Children screaming in war zones, cities burning, oceans turned black. Judge Ixilar said, "Your species thrives on ruin. You turn every gift into a weapon." The Adrian Hale lifted his chained hands, his voice ragged yet steady. He said, "We are guilty of blood, but we are guilty of love too, and you deny that truth." The words fell into silence, twisted instantly by sneers from alien mouths. Collaborator Marcus added coldly, "His words prove our weakness, not our worth." Yet in that injustice, the Adrian Hale saw a pattern. Some images were real, others warped beyond recognition. Humanity was not simply guilty, it was being framed. The tribunal filled with murmurs, alien spectators rippling with excitement, as human history was carved into condemnation. The Adrian Hale's throat tightened as he recalled the night his comrades turned on him, memories colliding with the distorted projections. He whispered, "Even truth here is a weapon." Judge Ixilar declared, "Every fragment is proof of your corruption." Yet the Adrian Hale's gaze caught small discrepancies, battles presented as genocide, images twisted until defenders looked like aggressors. He realized the trial was no trial at all, but a script rehearsed long before his arrival. In that revelation, despair gave way to fury. If the galaxy wished for a monster, Then truth itself would become his weapon, even if his voice was drowned in chains. That night, silence returned to the cell, but it was no silence of peace. The Adrian Hale sat in shadow, eyes fixed on the faint glow of the corridor beyond. The whisper came again, softer, closer. Silent ally said, "What you see is not justice but fear disguised as law." He raised his head, straining to catch her hidden figure through the darkness. "Why help me?" he whispered back. Her voice quivered with sorrow. "Because my people were once you. We were condemned, and no voice rose to save us." The truth struck deeper than chains. Humanity was not the first to be scapegoated, and if he fell silently, it would not be the last. His heart burned, not only with survival, but with a shared defiance older than his kind. The next tribunal session began with new evidence, not holograms of wars, but testimonies from collaborators. Marcus stood tall, his uniform pristine, voice sharp as steel. Marcus said, "Humanity cannot govern itself. It must kneel or it will burn the stars." His words were met with approving murmurs from alien judges. The Adrian Hale's pulse thundered as he glared at Marcus, hatred clashing with grief. "You are their puppet," he whispered, "a human mask for their fear." Marcus's smirk revealed no regret. The betrayal was complete. The chamber thundered with alien voices twisting his silence into guilt. But inside, the Adrian Hale's fury had sharpened into clarity. This trial was not about crimes already done, but about a future the galaxy feared. The tribunal chamber darkened, the final projection flickering to life, a vision of Earth's forests burning, oceans rising, cities collapsing. Judge Xalar said, "This is your legacy." The Adrian Hale's voice rose through chains, louder than before. He said, "You fear not our past, but our survival of it. You fear that we endure where others fall." His words spread like sparks through the silence, reaching even alien spectators who shifted uneasily. Silent Alla's gaze met his, her sorrow now edged with hope. For the first time, the Adrian Hale felt the tribunal tremble, not from anger but from doubt. The injustice had not broken him, it had armed him. Humanity's trial was only beginning, and already the galaxy's perfect lie had begun to crack. The tribunal did not end with execution. Instead, chains were removed, only to be replaced by trials of cruelty. The Adrian Hale was thrown into a chamber of shifting gravity, his body hurled against steel as the audience watched. Judge Isila declared, "Endure, and prove the weakness of your kind." The pain tore through muscle and bone, yet the Adrian Hale forced himself to rise, each movement defiance carved into flesh. He gasped, "We are not weak, we are scarred." Silent Al's eyes glimmered in sorrow, her silence a rebellion. This ordeal was never designed for justice. It was spectacle, meant to break both body and spirit. Yet with each impact, survival itself became his protest, a truth more dangerous than any crime. The next trial forced fire into the chamber. Heat seared the Adrian Hale's skin as walls glowed with orange light, flames spiraling into a cruel cage. Judge Xalar's voice echoed coldly, "Human flesh breaks quickly." But the Adrian Hale stood amid the inferno, sweat burning his eyes, refusing to collapse. His chest heaved, yet his voice rose, "We burn but we do not vanish." The crowd murmured, alien voices hissing disbelief. Silent Al's gaze sharpened, seeing not weakness but the resilience feared across the stars. The ordeal was meant to expose fragility, but instead it revealed the truth hidden beneath scars. Humanity endured because it had already lived through fire, and it always rose from ashes. The final ordeal tested not his body, but his spirit. A holographic vision of his daughter appeared before him, fragile and terrified, her eyes altered by alien cruelty. She said, "Why did you leave me?" His knees weakened, pain piercing deeper than fire or steel. The crowd watched eagerly, feeding on the torment. Tears burned down his scarred cheeks as he whispered, "I never left you. I carry you." Judge Xalar sneered, "Even your innocence condemns you." Yet in that moment, the Adrian Hale realized this was the heart of the trial. Not destruction of his body, but destruction of his humanity. And so he clung harder, refusing to let grief become surrender. His scars were not weakness, but testament. When the ordeal ended, the chamber fell into silence. The Adrian Hale collapsed but refused to bow, lifting his head despite blood trailing down his face. Silent ally whispered across the void, "They fear your endurance more than your crimes." In that truth, the conspiracy revealed itself. This was no trial, but an execution disguised as theater. The galaxy feared not what humanity had done, but what it might become if allowed to rise again. And then came betrayal sharper than chains. And Marcus stepped forward, his voice like poison. He said, "This was never about judgment, it was always about fear." The smirk on his face confirmed what the Adrian Hale had long suspected. The betrayal had been orchestrated from the start. The chamber erupted in murmurs as betrayal hung in the air. The Adrian Hale stared at Marcus, his former comrade, now revealed as architect of deceit. Rage and grief tore through him, but clarity rose above it. He shouted, "This is not justice, it is fear wearing law as a mask." His voice carried beyond the tribunal, into billions of eyes watching across the galaxy. Silent Al's sorrowful gaze met his, and for a moment, he was not alone. The tribunal had stripped him of strength, dignity, even love. But in surviving each ordeal, he had revealed the truth they could not bury. Humanity's power was not its weapons, but its refusal to collapse. And that truth was far more dangerous than extinction. The chamber stilled as the Adrian Hale rose, bloodied chains dragging across the obsidian floor. He no longer spoke to the tribunal alone, but to the galaxy beyond its walls. His voice cut through the silence. "You show our wars, but not our sacrifice. You show our cruelty, but not our love." Holograms flickered, casting humanity as monsters, but his words painted them as survivors. Judge XLR hissed, "You speak lies wrapped in sentiment." Yet, the billions watching leaned closer, uneasy. The Adrian Hale's strength was not in denial of guilt, but in the defiance to own it and rise anyway. His pain became testimony, each scar a page in the story no tribunal could erase. The Adrian Hale's voice carried like thunder, recounting stories no hologram could capture. He spoke of mothers who buried sons yet still stood, fathers who shielded daughters with their lives, soldiers who starved so children could eat. His words painted not conquest, but sacrifice. "We are not asking for mercy," he shouted, "we are demanding recognition." Murmurs surged among alien crowds, disbelief cracking into doubt. Silent Al's eyes burned with quiet pride, her silence no longer sorrow but solidarity. Humanity was no longer on trial as criminals. They were rising as kindred in the fire of endurance. The spark of rebellion lit within the galaxy itself. The chamber shook as Marcus stepped forward, desperate to restore control. He said, "Do not be deceived. He speaks of love, but carries only ruin." His uniform gleamed, his words sharp, but they no longer held power. The Adrian Hale's glare pierced him. "You betrayed us because you feared what we could become." Marcus's smirk faltered, cracks showing beneath his cold mask. The galaxy saw not humanity's weakness, but the collaborators' hollow ambition. Silent Ally whispered softly, "Truth spreads faster than fear." For the first time, Judge Xalar's eyes flickered with unease, his silence betraying what he refused to admit, doubt. The trial reached its breaking point. The Adrian Hale's voice rose like a storm, no longer pleading but commanding. "We are the fire you cannot extinguish. We endure, not because we are flawless, but because we refuse to vanish." His words echoed through the chamber, spreading into billions of alien homes. Spectators shifted from jeers to silence, doubt replacing contempt. Silent Ally rose slightly, her figure glowing faintly in support, while Judge Xalar's cold mask cracked into anger. The conspiracy trembled under the weight of truth, because survival itself had become the rebellion they could not contain. The climax came with blood and sacrifice. From the shadows, the innocent appeared, fragile yet luminous, the child humanity had nearly lost. She moved between the Adrian Hale and the tribunal as weapons rose. Silent Ally gasped, her sorrow breaking into action. The innocent whispered, "They cannot kill what we are." Then, in a single moment of defiance, she shielded him. Her small body struck down as chaos erupted. The Adrian Hale screamed, chains rattling, grief and fury merging into fire. He roared to the galaxy, "You cannot bury us. You cannot erase us. Because we are already inside you." The chamber shook not from war, but from awakening, the galaxy forced to see humanity's truth. The tribunal roared in chaos after the innocent's sacrifice. Alien factions shouted across the chamber, some demanding humanity's destruction, others demanding truth. Judge Sylar thundered, "The verdict remains, extermination." His voice shook the chamber, yet it no longer commanded obedience. The Adrian Hale was dragged forward, chains cutting into his skin, but his eyes burned with unbroken fire. Silent Ally rose from her seat, her voice trembling but strong. She said, "This is no justice, this is fear unmasked." Billions across the galaxy watched as the lie cracked open for all to see. Humanity was no longer a prisoner. It had become a mirror the galaxy could not turn away from. The Adrian Hale staggered as guards pulled him toward execution, yet his voice rose louder than chains. He shouted, "You fear us because we endure. You fear us because we are already inside you. In memory, in fire, in the will to rise." His words echoed through every broadcasted channel, resonating across billions of worlds. Alien factions shouted in defiance of Zylar's judgment, their order unraveling. Marcus hissed from the side, "You will die with nothing but hollow words." But the Adrian Hale's gaze burned through him, and he replied, "Words are seeds, and today they burn brighter than your lies." The tribunal fractured as truth spread like wildfire. Alien screens replayed the Adrian Hale's defiance, intercut with Silent Allow's words, exposing the conspiracy that had orchestrated the trial. The crowd turned, some calling for liberation, others for blood. Judge Sylar slammed his hand upon the throne, his composure cracking, his voice trembling with rage. "Humanity is guilty," he roared, "and will be erased." Yet his authority faltered in the chaos. For the first time, doubt flickered across the galaxy's collective gaze. The trial was no longer about guilt. It was about fear of what humanity represented, the impossible refusal to be broken. The Adrian Hale was forced onto the execution platform, chains binding him as weapons powered with deadly light. Yet his eyes remained fixed on the galaxy watching. He shouted, "You cannot erase us. You cannot silence us. Because we are already in you, in your fear, in your memory, in your fire." His voice carried like thunder across worlds, louder than any sentence Judge Sylar could deliver. Silent Allah's hands trembled as she stepped forward, risking everything. She whispered, "They wanted an ending. You gave them a beginning." The tribunal shook not from weapons, but from awakening, billions realizing the truth of humanity's defiance. The tribunal's sentence fell: extermination. But before execution could strike, the galaxy erupted. Alien factions clashed, riots sparking across systems as the conspiracy crumbled. The Adrian Hale stood bloodied, still chained, yet his voice rang clear. "We are not guilty. We are feared." Chaos consumed the chamber, and Judge Sylar's authority shattered in the storm of rebellion. Silent Allow's sorrow became resolve, her presence anchoring him in the sea of violence. For humanity, survival was no longer granted, it was seized. The trial had failed, and in its failure, humanity had carved its place not as criminals, but as kindred. The chamber stood in ruins after chaos ripped through it. Alien banners smoldered, walls cracked under the weight of revolt. The Adrian Hale staggered forward, still chained, his breath ragged but steady. He was not triumphant, yet he was unbroken. Judge Sylar vanished into the shadows of defeat, his authority shattered beyond repair. Silent Ally approached, her sorrowful eyes filled with unspoken understanding. She said softly, "You live, but not unscarred." He nodded, his voice hoarse. "Neither does humanity." Survival had come at a cost, and though execution was denied, freedom was not yet won. They were spared, but only to be watched. Outside the chamber, alien fleets still hovered above, their weapons aimed but silent. The galaxy now saw humanity differently, not as criminals, but as survivors marked by scars. The Adrian Hale raised his gaze toward the stars, his voice carrying to no one yet meant for all. He whispered, "You wanted extinction. Instead you proved our endurance." Silent Ally remained beside him, her silence a shield against despair. Across the networks, billions watched in stunned quiet. Some would never forgive humanity, but others now saw them as kindred, fractured but unyielding. It was not victory, but it was life. The Adrian Hale's steps were slow, his body heavy with wounds, yet each movement echoed louder than 1,000 speeches. He thought of the innocent, her sacrifice burning within him like an eternal flame. Her whispered words echoed, "They cannot kill what we are." He pressed his chained hands to his chest, carrying her memory as a burden and a vow. Humanity would live, but scarred and forever marked. Silent Ally turned her face away, unable to hide her grief. For the galaxy, this trial had been a spectacle. For him, it had been the death of innocence and the birth of warning. Far beyond the chamber, the galaxy erupted in debate. Some species declared humanity a threat to be watched forever. Others whispered of alliance. The Adrian Hale walked unseen through corridors of ruin, yet he felt the galaxy's gaze on his back. Silent Ally said quietly, "They will never forget this day." He replied, "Nor will we." His voice cracked, not from weakness, but from the knowledge that survival had forged a new identity. Humanity was no longer the accused. It was the reminder, the shadow cast over every council chamber, the warning of what fear creates. At the edge of the ruined hall, the Adrian Hale stopped, his figure framed against the endless void beyond the dome. His scars were not trophies but reminders, and his chains clinked softly like echoes of a past that would never vanish. He whispered, "They wanted a verdict. What they got was a warning." Silent Ally lowered her head, her sorrow mingling with quiet respect. The galaxy would live with the echo of these words, carried into every chamber, every debate, every fearful whisper of humanity's endurance. He was not victorious, not yet, but he had carved humanity into the galaxy's memory forever.